Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series Spring. It's spring because it's April 20th. We're almost into May.
Spring showers, spring
May
flowers.
storms, May-sized storms, right? That's how that goes.
Okay, I heard that one.
Yeah, that's I've been workshopping in the back. Jeff has told me not to say any of the things that I've said, but I'll bring some of them out here for you guys because I know how much you love them. We have a Zerg vs Protoss coming up next. Very exciting times. We're going into the lower bracket match.
Yes,
Just a nice way of saying the loser match.
Has any pro actually been upset that they're called losers? No. I've seen viewers.
In StarCraft, StarCraft is so hard that we always look for opportunities to self-deprecate because we know how difficult it is.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
But I've gotten people that are like, you shouldn't call it the losers bracket.
Yeah.
Really mean. What if they're listening to the cast and they hear you and it's like, oh, if they're listening to the cast, they're already doing something wrong.
And
like,
8th place, if you make it in the money, deserves some kind of trophy, right? There should be a little 8th place trophy out there as well, shouldn't there?
There's like the giant first place trophy. And it's like,
yeah. It's like, well, hey, man. A little ladder. It's like, well, you qualified from ladder trophy. We give you a little bronze ladder.
Actually, I would love a little like shot glass, like 8th place shot glass, so you can drink your worries away as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be Harstem versus Nerchio. We're actually already loading into the first map, so you don't have to listen to us ramble too much. But hopefully you're having a nice day wherever you are in this great big old wide world. We've got plenty of matches coming up, as we also have our Americas group after this. So lots of StarCraft to keep your weekend nice and busy. Don't worry, we'll be done before Thrones is on tomorrow, so make sure you tune in then as well. You got your whole day of watching stuff wrapped up.
Yeah, that's a nice little schedule right there.
Yeah, good weekend of premium content.
Well, we are into King's Cove for the first map of the series. In the bottom right, as the red Zerg, he is Nerchio.
I wish whenever someone said my name, there was like an epic guitar riff or something like that. Yeah, I need that. I need the production guys behind that every time I'm introduced at a party. In the top left, we have the blue Protoss player. He is Harstem.
Maybe instead of skin ambassador, he just goes do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, that's what I want when I say my name. Guitar riff. Insert guitar riff. That under my name. Yeah.
Well, so we just saw Harstem play a rather safe macro style to say, I guess trying to avoid the word passive there, but it was a little. Nerchio, of course, hasn't played the DVP yet, but is already showing us something very, very different than what a laser was doing.
Yeah.
Wow. Actually going immediately into the evolution chamber. So
I'm surprised. Didn't wait at all. Didn't try to stall it out. Just straight to the Evo chamber block. I wonder if he thinks that as long as the Evo chamber finishes, like the broodlings will be enough to do something significant.
Yeah, but I also I personally don't do this build in order to play Zerg, but I gotta imagine it's also like you don't have to do the whole waiting for 300 minerals to come back to you, right? Or two, whatever it is.
It's a bit of a shift, right? Because Nerchio was going like double hatch before pool against Serral, and now he's like, nah, I'm just gonna proxy hatch, Evo chamber bomb, and he's not going to be able to get the probe with those broodlings. So an interesting choice to say the least.
Yeah, it's very weird, right? Because you don't do the hatchery block, and then you also literally send a drone out so early that it is a kind of significant mineral dump. The difference between why Protoss can always do their probe harassment is that they don't actually have to wait for them to build something like Terrans do, or literally sacrifice something like Zergs do. They plop it down and they leave, right? So to see a Zerg send anything out that early, was that really worth it? I feel like it wasn't, because Harstem also didn't overreact. Yeah. So
I'm interested to see what Nerchio does, just because it looks like less of a economic cheese, if that makes sense, in terms of his opening. And this Adept with his probe doing a really good job of blocking this third hatchery from going down. So Nerchio feeling a little bit of counter pressure in this situation, as we know he's not rushing for any tech yet. And the Adept is going to go through the main base and see that. There's nothing weird. There's no hidden roach horn or baneling nest or lair for like a fast nidus. It's just going to be pretty straightforward out of our Polish Zerg player. And especially with the probe patrolling on the third base, Harstem's got to be feeling pretty good. That delay that he got is gnarly.
Yeah. Probably also a little concerned why there isn't like anything quite yet here to take care of it. So it's constantly checking in with the 2 adepts, but also looking for an open opportunity to get some drone kills in the natural, perhaps. Gonna just go straight for the easy kill.
Goodbye.
On that third base making drone. And Nerchio has had a pretty weird start to the series. Meanwhile, Harstem goes into that Robo, Twilight Council, and Archon drop, I suppose, will be coming out. But Nerchio, super delayed. Also spent an odd amount of money on Ling. So he didn't just make 4, right? But he did have to worry about those adepts, even though they've left now. They could have continued posturing.
Yeah.
And he's actually looking for them. He wants the Lings to be worth it, actually do something here. Finally, the third base is put down. It was a long delay.
Yeah, that's... I feel like I'm so used to seeing these crazy fast thirds in ZVP. My mind is a little bit blown here.
Yeah. There's Harstem going for the... So he actually has 4 adepts this time if he were to make a... Yeah, there's
right,
no prism.
because he can go straight across with that. And he's got the Twilight Council, so expect to maybe see him just drop the Templar Archives, go do some Adept Harass, pull back, warp in for Archon drop, and re-engage. But he has yet to start that tech building, so we'll see. It is... Okay, there we go. Templar Archives, and there's the Prism with 2 Adepts.
Yeah, very similar to literally the last game that we saw from Harstem. So also using the Warp Prism high ground to take care of that pesky little Overlord. Not seeing any movement, even a probe going to third base, something that Overlord could have seen. And we have a Lair, Roach, Warren done for Nerchio. So I'm guessing just a standard. Nerchio, when he was almost back, up on the top of the Zergs, he unfortunately never really got back up after 2017. But he was doing a lot of drops, which would be awesome to see. But I feel like that's actually kind of fallen out of favor. Even a Laser who got Overlord speed seemed to be migrating his Overlords this way, that way. Didn't actually even use it in the last series. And it's something that I would really want to see Nerchio be known for, because it was such a cool style. But just offensive play and dealing with the War Prism. Already dealt with, I think, 2 of the Adepts. Or no, they're over here. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Bamboozled me. So they actually aren't going to do much either.
Yeah, just a couple of drones. Not bad if you can get out with both of them as well. Getting the third drone. 4, okay. I'm feeling pretty good about that now. And here's that.
Okay.
The Archon drop that we were talking about, as we are so used to seeing in this matchup. And I do wonder if this style is going to shape up a little bit better against Nerchio, assuming that Harstem goes for something like he just tried against a Laser. Archons come down. Those Queens doing a really good job focus firing that Prism.
Yeah. Tries to take out.
Oh, no!
Oh, God. No, jeez.
And the crowd goes wild. Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Very,
Ouch.
very
Ouch.
nice
Ouch.
there for Nerchio. All 3 Queens there, knowing exactly where the Archon drop is going to come in from. And then Harstem not really respecting that, He dived in, and then, even if he had tried to leave earlier, that was still always going to be danger with the War Prism. So losing that pressure, losing that harassment, scouting, Archons to bring back too in case Nerchio were to send an army across the map.
The pickup range on the Prism is big, but it ain't bigger than the Queen's range. Nothing outranges the Queen.
Right? That is an amazing grab there for Nerchio. And Harstem's immediately going to remake the War Prism for at least some type of harassment. An ability to actually even threaten moving out, but that is a huge, huge loss, and Nerchio should be feeling very confident after that. Just take any, follow-up seriously, and that Ling scouts the army kind of moving forward. But is that really serious? I feel like that's not serious. Even though War Prism is on the way, that is just not a big army. There's not even any...
no force fields on the sentries either,
energy.
so if you were to run into this, you would just die. He's building another Prism. He's getting charged, but I don't go too far on the map. Nerchio would love for this army to show up at his front door.
Yeah, that's I'm all about it's awesome when they try and kind of push and oh, I'm off a creep, you can't touch me, but that's a very small army.
Yeah, he pulls back. There's the Prism, I think, grabs 4 of the Adepts and is probably gonna try to swing his way down towards the south side.
Nerchio, it's not that he was. There's so many, again, that if he had actually pushed on a creep with that army, that would have been a disaster. Because Nerchio's already up to 67 drones, 4 bases, so he was going to make army anyways. And now he has an army, he has some Ravagers, adding in those Hydras, and teching up as well, threatening this third base. Storm is not done, but whenever you see High Templars already made, no matter what race you are, you pretty much got to respect that. You got to just assume that it's already done, and you'd be running up to a bunch of Storms.
Yeah, well, and on the offhand, that Storm isn't done. It's still, it could finish in the mid-fight. It's happened, I think, to everybody.
Yeah.
It's like a StarCraft rite of passage, is you're like, oh, Storm might not be done, and then you run up and he's not storming you, but then eventually it hits anyway, and you're like, well, now I can't really get away. So there's the Adept drop. at the third base. And I feel like you get a couple of them distracting the queens, a couple of them getting some drones. Only 2 picked off, though. Those adepts, I think, are shading towards the natural, while the other warping in the main comes through, but the natural adepts are killed. Zealots are going to see that Spire. It just started, so very low on hit points, but I don't think he's going to be able to get a snipe off on it. Just grabs a few more drones with the Zealots, and very well done. Total of 8 workers picked off. Did not lose this warp prism, which is probably the most important component of this harass.
Yeah, and once again, Harstem just... Well, considering the opener, he kind of has to do this, but also, again, going into just 4th base, Stargate, seeing that the opponent is looking towards that late game. He himself is also doing so. He has changed up his composition a little bit. I was going to say those should be at least some more Archons, but not that mass Archon we saw the last time we were on King's Cove, and might be a little shy of doing that too, considering how much it was beaten back by lasers and festers. So more thought process on the Stargates, but an attack might happen. Nerchio is maxed out. He wants to get rid of some army just to make room for those Broodlords eventually, but he's up against a decent Protoss army. He's got to be careful here.
Yeah, especially worry of a counterattack. You're talking about Broodlords. That Hive did just finish, but it takes a while to get that Greater Spire up, especially since Harstem knows that Spire is on the field, and he still has that Prism tucked in the back. Now, these forces push up towards that 4th base. A couple of those storms really softened it up, but there's the Prism now in the natural, I think. Yeah, double Prism available, but that 4th base getting knocked down, not good for Harstem.
No, it is not. And the War Prism looks like it's going to be cleaned up eventually without doing a lot of damage. The 4th base goes down along with 11 probes. He barely saved the rest of them, and Harstem has really shrunk down in supply there.
That's huge right here. Very big warping on top of the Greater Spire before it can finish up. Focus firing that down is a huge victory for Harstem if he can get it down below half hit points. A couple of the extra peripheral Zealots to pull those Hydralisks away and go for drones, and a really fantastic pick off there for our Protoss player.
But I feel like if Nerchio, and he gets to see how big Harstem's army is, and it's it's still Storm, still Archons, it's something that he has won literally just 10 seconds ago with Concave. If he just maxed out on a ground army, wouldn't it be so bad? He'd at least be able to continue bullying Harstem away from a 4th base, and I think that'd be actually a great thing to do.
The 4th thing makes me nervous, and you know what, Zombie Grub? From the last cast you're doing with Jeff, he's building a single Void Ray, and is that the Protoss sign of what is it, like you look for like signs of choking? It's like, is that it? Protoss is building Void Rays. Should we be performing the Heimlich maneuver? Is something bad happening here?
It's the smell of burnt toast. First stroke, yep. Yeah, I mean, it feels that way. It feels like sometimes Harstem, again, like this has to be a little bit to do with pacing, but also like reading into like how much your opponent can even go into Broodlord. So he knows that he cut that down. He knows he's delayed it a little bit, but still wants to go ahead and get the jump start. But because he's getting that jump start, he's actually still like scary down in supply to deal with what is still a very large Zerg ground army. So as he moves out here to once again try and take this 4th base, it is a 40 supply difference, and there's still that huge concave that Nerchio can get.
You need that 4th. The money for this army's got to come from somewhere, and the main mining out, natural's going to run low soon, so you're going to end up heavily leaning on that 3rd, but the Zerg player able to get the 5th in the bottom center. It's going to be rolling in the money, and at this point, you're just trying to protect the quarterback, keep the Spire alive, get Broodlords out, and have what you need. 3 Overlord drop going towards the natural while that main army pulls apart on the right side. Big warp in here of Zealots to deal with it, but the Roaches are there to be the chunky boys and pick up on a few of those remaining forces too.
They tried anyways, but it didn't work out. Harstem had enough money, had enough warp-ins to warp in
nice.
Quite a lot of Zealots, and the Void Ray ended up helping out along with the Mothership, so the drop really didn't do what it wanted. It took away power from the concave at the front to hold off on that 4th base, and they didn't do anything at that natural, so it wasn't the best, but Nerchio has been banking behind this. It's like one of the real, there's only been so many trades right in this game, and that creep spread, we wanted to mention this like a minute ago, but it is encroaching on that 4th base, so a lot of additional movement speed to every single unit here, and then also just vision. And actually, Harstem doesn't have an observer. Oh, no, he does. Okay. So we will clean it up, but he's just being cautious. He doesn't know where the Zerg army is.
Need to get rid of that creep. And as you're talking about big threat being jumped on top of, that 4th base still not situated. Like, once you get the Nexus done, you're able to mine off of it, get some shield battery, maybe a cannon or two. You try to lock it down, but it has been a very difficult time so far for our Dutch Protoss, and I do wonder how far along he's going to push, if he's going to try to force a big fight in the near future. Oracle gets a revelation off, but with a bunch of spore crawlers, of course, that's going to make it harder for those air units to get through. A single zealot comes in to whack a roach warren. Not getting too much done here, though.
No. Nerchio, I mean, his creep shard really was focused down the middle, but he's also got some decent left and right, so he's trying to see those little run-bys that Harstem has been doing in every single PvZ before they really do a lot of damage. War Prisms as well, but we don't actually have one going for harassment. Actually, I think we do in the top right, but it's going to bypass an Overlord eventually. So we're into that late game. Nerchio's not been broken. Harstem didn't just like throw all of his Archons into Infestors this time. He's going to lose some probes, though. This is, I think, a very purposeful like sacrifice. Like, he wanted to do something with this, but should it die after a minute? Like, okay, fine. More Broodlords then.
Yeah, a couple of these Ravagers with the Hydras get over towards that third base. 8 probes picked off. 2 Zealots and 2 Archons with something behind them come over there. War Prism in the main you were talking about comes by. And Harstem's kind of being pulled every which way. Money is still the problem, but he hasn't lost the 4th or anything like that, so
yeah.
Feeling good. Vipers are coming out with more Infestors.
Yeah, I mean, Harstem was definitely at a scary spot, and if it wasn't for, you know, the third base choke, the high ground, right, he was down quite a bit of armor supply, but he is recovered, and while he's still struggling to get a bank to really feel comfortable, as we get into that late game, once he has a 5th, I think he'll feel much more comfortable.
I mean, he's been scrambling to get units out, right? It's not like he has a crazy amount of workers. Like, 60 probes is... It's okay for saturating, but that's only because the main and the natural are running out of resources, so he can kind of have those spread out across his 4. But, like, if, you know, you'd love to have a 5th in this situation, right? Put a couple more workers to work. But Harstem's also shown that he really likes Archons in his PvZ today. Yeah.
Well, usually they are that what do you have that really beats us except Broodlords, right? But
I mean, the Archon's flavor line is the cheat code for infinite health, right? in Brood War, so they're basically cheats, right? If you think about it.
Totally. But we see the Zergs are adapting to this, right? They have, I mean, already Nerchio has Broodlords through their lab, but he also has a ton of Fungals.
The Fungals worked really well for laser against the Archons, just because they don't have the range, so you can slow them down and that's it. Great Abduct, get the Immortals out of the picture, and that's, I mean, having the Immortals, even though they're not really going to deal with the Broodlord portion, definitely, I think it's still one of those things where they can, if they get a couple shots on the Infestors or the Spore Crawlers, can still help pave away.
It's a balancing act, right? Like, you don't want to just give away some of these expensive units for nothing. But if, like, you're talking about that perfect late game army, then I guess you get rid of the Immortals, which you also would eventually get rid of, like, half these Archons, and you go into maybe more air.
That's what confuses me, is like, well, you're getting rid of some of your ranged units, and at that point, the Immortals may just be better to have something that can actually shoot. Of course, the Infested Terrans are the last thing that you want to engage into with those air units. They are very terrifying with their anti-air, especially since they do benefit from that +3 range upgrade that Nerchio has. Those rocket launchers was like 17 damage a hit versus air with +3.
I don't know, but just adding purple coloring to their shots, it made them extreme.
Yeah. It was what was like when they made Blue Flame Icon blue, right? And Hellions became broken. So we have Neural Parasite being added as well, so maybe we'll see a Mama Ship grab.
I think so. I think it's exactly what he's looking for. Very difficult to do, though, unless you are abusing the terrain, because the High Templars are going to be there as well, and it is back and forth.
Yes. And it's something we don't talk about as much these days, but when that Mothership comes into play, like, if you can get a sick time, or the fact, because it slows down the attack speed of the units it gets now as well, is like, it's quite a big deal in a big fight if you can actually land it.
And I'm not saying that there's pro gamers that don't know that, but I feel like it was something that was very much so forgotten about, because the Mothership just isn't,
people are like, Time Warp? You mean that upgrade we used to kill people with Blink Stalkers on Yansu 4 years ago?
Oh God, don't remind me.
Yeah, you just time warp the ramp, and it's like, good game, Terran player.
Yeah, no, it actually affects the attack speed, so it is a very useful thing. Even when it only was movement, like, that is still something that can contribute. It ended up being a lot of Zealots. Some of those are Changelings, but still a lot of damage in the main that Nerchio had to take seriously. But luckily, he still had that ground army to move back there, while still having a very strong defensive line at the front with Broodlord, Corrupt, their Viper. Yeah, nice juggling there.
Abducts that Mothership in, so he burns all the energy that he can. He's like, well, just drop 2 Time Warps randomly, I guess. And fun fact, the attack speed reduction, I believe, also affects static defense buildings as well.
Oh, really?
So you would slow down missile turrets or these spore crawlers. They would shoot slower too. Assuming that you were trying to break a position like that, it's not bad to just throw it down on top of the buildings, which are less likely to dodge you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like they showed a preview of like on a missile turret.
Yeah.
Not something I would have thought about, but we are in that position. This is like a, I mean, I'm getting throwbacks, right?
It's relevant, right? It's going to be trying to break a very heavily besieged spot.
That hatchery's totally misplaced, right? Like, I'm not crazy.
That one?
Actually, maybe not. It's just a very weird mineral concave.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a weird base layout.
All right, I'll give it.
It does look. It looks further away from the gas than it should be, but it's just.
Okay.
It's a half base, right? So.
Yes, yeah, but it is
meant to be weird.
I mean, you can see like. I haven't really seen like so many late game PvZs. This is really almost bizarre that it's happened to like every single PvZ today. That could be because Harstem is the common denominator, right?
Yeah,
but it's also
all in. It looks like
it's also like King's Cove. You get 3 bases, kind of nice and simple. They're all on the high ground, and then if you can secure a 4th to a 5th, then you suddenly also get that half base 6, and maybe even that 7th because there's only the if you're on Air Army, there's only the blocker in between them, so it's an easy position to go ahead and defend. Maybe your right side gets at some point weak, but put some spine crawlers up, and usually you're safe against most zealot attacks. Until we start getting like baller numbers of zealots and DTs as well.
Yeah. Then we bring in control back out for the DT analysis, since Fear Dragon's not here to help us.
I don't think anyone like Puck, or no, it wasn't Puck, it was Drogo literally came up to us, was like, yeah, I had no idea the upgrade affected like the Roach hits, kill shot.
Yep.
That's just a Fear Dragon thing. Oh, that's for good ducks. But it was also Harstem. I guess he was looking to use his Tempest to kill some of those spore crawlers, but that really backfired.
Yeah.
Oh
man. Vipers are. Oh, Vipers drive me. They boil my blood when I play the Protoss memes. It is frustrating. That abduct is so good, and with the Tempest being removed from play, suddenly you're worried about getting boxed in against these Broodlords. And with this many infestors with so much energy, I think you can even see like Neural Parasite on the Archons. Like, you're never gonna plow through the Broodlings and the Infesteds to actually get to this army without some seriously good air engagements.
Yeah, this is a very, very scary army. Once you get to a certain number of infestors, once you get to stack defense, and you are also kind of defending that creep, so, stack defense and, again, movement, it's difficult to break. They are seeing super late game PvZ to its best, I guess, right now, and Harstem seems to be kind of struggling to find a way to actually break this. I mean, repositioning would probably mean that our Nerchio just goes forward and kills Harstem 6th, so...
It's a brave new world ever since that carrier nerf. Back in the day, it was like, well, if you get into this situation, you just build 8 to 10 carriers and collect your money, but it's not the same way. You got to be really careful with how you engage this, because those Tempests, they're also not the Ferrari Tempests that they were before either.
Yeah. It's so weird, right? Because we had so many mid-game PvZs for the last year, I want to say, year and a half, and especially because of the Nidus Worm shenanigans, right?
Oh my God.
Protoss were getting bombarded by Nidus Worms, and
like
still can be.
Trying to walk a puppy, like this mothership is just like, come on. Well, you shouldn't yoink a puppy,
No, you should not. But now we get to the situation where Protoss does get to the late game, and it's still looking like a real struggle as Nerchio has been able to secure all those bases. There really wasn't a lot of action at the beginning of the game, and Harstem was, to be critical, he was kind of late to these extra bases, so this one's going to go down with it not having mined much.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's just not a whole lot that can be done, right? You're like, okay, well, I'm going to throw the Archons away. Let's get some value out of them, and then there's so many spine crawlers with the Hydralisks, and
yeah,
this is really rough. I'm following Harstem's vision on my observing PC. He's like not even looking at that base that's been lost. He's just like, all right, well,
it's gone.
He's just trying to micro around these zealots he's got in the bottom and those Archons on the right, and he's not finding anything. And
Yeah,
with just the number of Vipers, like the Viper count was doing really good. He got a few of them. There's only 2 left, but the Vipers really made themselves very valuable in this game.
And then talking about a patch that happened a while back, when we're still kind of in the mid game, like the PvZs for the most part, there was a nerf to High Templars feedback.
Yes.
So they don't, like, a lot of times they would have a guaranteed kill almost on a Viper.
The High Templar only does half a damage per energy drained, so for most units that means it's not going to be, you're not one-shotting units like Raven, I think. And then Vipers have a very similar health pool, if I recall correctly. I think they get up towards like
There you go.
125 or something like that at full health.
Yeah. The point is, like, it's a difficult position. It's extra difficult because Harstem didn't exactly, like, you know, overexpand and
150 health at full, so even at 200 energy, you're not one-shotting a Viper with feedback anymore, so.
There you go. Yeah. So it's there's an extra difficult position, and Nerchio has done a really great job being very calm with this. You know, before we sound like we're hating on Zerg or something, like that'd be a trip to Terran casters.
I mean,
on the
this is really just Nerchio has played this very well, and honestly, I'm just gonna say I find Harstem's unit composition choice just a bit odd. Like the ridiculous number of Archons, tries to throw them away, goes back into having a ton of Archons with the army, and not attacking early on outside of the prisms. Like he let the game get really long, and I mean, balance aside, this is just generally where Zerg thrives, right? In a matchup when they can spread the creep around the map, take all these bases, build tons of static defense, and then as the Protoss, the entire game becomes just trying to keep the Vipers off your Tempest. But without the Tempest, you cannot engage into the Zerg army because he's got 11 Broodlords, and Archons have 3 range. So good luck.
Yeah.
There we go. And that's what you try to do, is the balancing act here gets a good revelation.
Yeah, but he's lucky enough to get just one Broodlord because they're a little too far forward of the Vipers.
And then you throw the Infested Terrans out and you see just a couple of those rockets careen off into the sky, and the Tempest is almost dead.
I feel like this is one of those games where it does look like stupidly in favor of one person, right? Because they got to that build up faster.
I just don't see how this army actually engages for Harstem, because like Archons could kill the Corruptors if they tried to dive on them, but that's not what they're going to do. It's going to be abducts, and then the Archons don't do anything.
Yeah. It's also very different, again, like if Nerchio had not gotten to that 5th base with static defense, it's also very different when you're, you know, defensive and you're running out of creep spread and you don't know where the army's coming in from. But Nerchio has the entire map with like extra static defense as well.
Yeah, well, this is like Field of Dreams level spore crawlers everywhere. If you build it, they will come, is what's going on. Like there's not a whole lot. Get some solid feedbacks on those. Try to break open these rocks. There's nowhere that there isn't static defense. Oh, he's getting a neural. Hi, Tempest, bro. Come hang out.
Neuroparasite is a very long range, so that is sometimes the best thing to do there.
I think it's 9, right? And you can do it while burrowed.
I think so.
Yeah.
So this 5th base is just no go. I'm really surprised that he tried to take this one again, considering that the top right side of this map has just not been abused whatsoever, and Nerchio's army is slow.
Did you ever play in the beta when the Neural Parasite lasted forever?
Yes.
Those are good times.
Yes.
I was like, man, the Thor was like twice the size of a factory, and I was like, I love Thors. And then a Zerg like Neural Parasites all my Thors, but they still count as my supply, and I'm like, oh, I just can't do anything.
Oh.
So I'm like, I've got 60 supply that is now my enemy's permanently.
That was a bug, right? Like occasionally one Thor would be like twice the size of every other.
Well, so that was like a bug with some unit skins, because the Thor originally was bigger than a factory because it was supposed to be built on the field by an SCV. Like the lore was that it was so big it had to be manually built.
Like the Odin or whatever it is.
But like in that first patch, I remember, because all the 2v2 maps, you shared a base and you had one ramp, and you could just block the whole ramp with one Thor. It's good times.
Yeah.
Great for griefing, you know, that's...
They're also when like one base like 3 racks push was like literally the game.
Oh yeah.
Versus Protoss.
You ever build a barracks at 8 supply? Of course.
So I do think that Harstem, like even though when he moves out on a creep, it's super dangerous, and that's why he's retreated. He did it once and he was like, never mind. I do think it's the only way he's really gonna find success here.
Yeah, he's got to do the, what was it, like the old school tasteless build, just mass cannons, throw shield batteries in there, play off the position, and this game is going to turn into, I want to say it's like you want to try to slowly choke the other player out, but Nerchio has already established himself so very well.
But you know, even now, right, there's like, he's cleaned up some creep spread, so Nerchio missed this army moving for the first half of its adventure, and then it got sighted by the Overlord here. So his army is already slightly in position, like the middle of King's Cove, that 6th/5th base. When you're on air, it's not that difficult to go from left to right, I suppose, but it is going to at least catch some units off guard. Viper's going to be faster. They're going to actually go over terrain when the ground army doesn't, and that's when you get the feedback, for instance. And another cool thing that Harstem's trying to do here, he's trying to adapt. is he's got a lot of High Templars and War Prisms. I think that's 3 War Prisms with High Templars. Now, that's going to be hard to control, so more power to him, but that does mean that hopefully they don't get, like, mass fungled, right? Or there's no banelings, or they wouldn't be hit by banelings either. Just something there to protect them, because he has so many High Templars. 19 High Templars. That's actually an insane amount.
The Storm build.
I don't know if that's good, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you imagine all the power of those storms, but then you're like, no one man should have all that power.
Well, it feels like
use it without making a mistake.
So High Templar aren't that supply expensive. That's the good news. So you can't have an absurdly high amount without, like, you know, not having 8 temp or something like that. But it does feel like a parasitic bomb goes poorly, or he miscontrols, which seems, and this is not a remark on Harstem, just generally how hard StarCraft 2 is. It feels like he would miscontrol at least 1 or 2 of those, and it's just like, that is a lot of your strategy gone in the blink of an eye. And again, and storms aren't even that effective against, we're talking about stack defense, right? Still so much of it. It's not going to do that much damage to it. They're not going to be that, unless the Broodlords are really, really clumped, you are going to need about a dozen, so we'll see.
He shift cues the Prism to go around the bottom right side up towards that 3rd base, starts up some carriers. And I guess for Harstem, he's just not sure how to engage into this army, so he's like, I'm going to get carriers. I'm going to try to use them. Unfortunately, with how good the Infested Terrans are, and just the general reduction in strength from losing the Graviton Catapult on carriers, they're nothing like they used to be, like a few months back. And it's weird because, God, I don't miss dying to Mass Carrier as a Terran player. But watching PvZ nowadays, I'm like, boy, if you don't do like a Neeb strategy and try to like really like, you know, like one of those big 2-base hits where he does all that crazy adept stuff, it feels really hard to get something done here. Gets the Neural onto Mama's ship, and yeah, he's gonna bring her home. It's like, all right, I'm gonna kill that. Thanks, bro.
He even hallucinated a Phoenix. He neuraled a hallucinated Phoenix.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize you could do that.
I feel like that was a mistake.
I wonder if you like, can you neural Parasite Changeling? Like what happens?
Oh my God,
you
can
do
you?
Some you know what? That's once again, Fear Dragon. Can you drop your social life and stop and getting invited to weddings and stuff? Because I need the important. I need the. That wouldn't be useless here. Oh,
the neural parasitic changeling wouldn't be useless.
I don't know, man.
I mean, we're in a CVP, so he'd be neuraling his own.
He did hallucinate. He did neural a hallucination. I mean, if you couldn't do that, then it would have saved him energy, right? He lost the Prism, by the way, to some Hydras in the main, so.
Yeah.
Harstem's map controls, map presence, not feeling so strong anymore.
It's really hard to critique, you know, Harstem when I think we're both standing here like, I don't know what this army does to engage either, but I feel like if you
I don't know how you break this. I feel like Nerchio has set himself, like, especially with the mass static defense, I'm like, as long as there's enough Infestors to drop like 10 Infested Terrans, all the Interceptors will immediately die if he engages with carriers.
Yeah. But I feel like if you kind of restarted this game from minute, like, let's say 16, so they're both still pretty deep into the late game, and you just put more emphasis on harassment. And I mean, it's going to be expensive, right? And this is a situation that Harstem really couldn't be in because he was still kind of low on that base count. He still really is. You know, he's finally getting a 6, and that's great.
Neurals the Oracle.
Nice.
Neurals it in.
But he maybe could have, like, I mean, I'm talking like 1,500 mineral run buys. You know, 15 Zealots or combination Zealots and DTs. I don't think we had a Dark Shrine ever, and that makes sense because there's so many Spore Crawlers. He probably figures it's not worth it. But they actually do an insane amount of damage. So if there's something there protecting the Spore Crawlers,
he's tried to poke in every which way.
He has.
There's a silly amount of side defense. There are 67 Spore Crawlers on the map and 21 Spines.
But 21 Spines are spread out. So again, this is like very like. It's impossible to even like bring it up because it's a what-if situation, and it would have been done earlier on. But if he could have literally sacrificed 20 units at a time to maybe find an opening, or 10 over there and 10 over there, and his army through the middle, you would take away a lot of supply from your main army. So maybe Nerchio just goes like, well, F you, I'm coming to the middle of the map anyways. Yeah. But that seems like the only situation that this could have been a different game. Otherwise,
it is a swarming.
It's
this. How it feels. I don't know how you break this.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck without going for it, without just committing to a crazy attack, and just A-move everything that can be A-moved and try to micro your heart out with the Prism and get all the storms out and the feedbacks, like, without just like really going for it, I don't feel like long-term it just works. In that situation, by the way, feedbacks would be able to kill the Infestors because Investors only have 90 hit points, so at full energy, feedback would kill him still.
He is creep all over his bases.
Look at this, the preemptive. He's like, I'm just gonna throw fresh turns over here, bruh. The range on him is sick. There's the duct. Goodbye, goodbye.
I guess defensively is what Harstem has to hope for, that Nerchio gets overconfident and moves into his own stack defense, of which he does not have much.
Nerchio's about to hit that 10,000 Oprah money mineral count, and that's not going to make things easier for Harstem either. Both players are down at just less than 40 workers because they want to have the most chonky armies they possibly can.
High Templar's being taken out. Very easy. They've all been maxed out on every upgrade that's important. Well, I guess the High Templars actually don't have any armor, but that's, yeah, okay. It's not going to really help out that much. But the other important upgrades have all been maxed out. And,
yeah. I've been watching
death.
most of this just from Harstem's first-person perspective, and it feels bleak. He's doing a lot of monitoring of that army, but like he's trying to keep everything close to the chest, rotating around that northeast side. Honestly, I'm just waiting for like a big attack on the natural, like just push up that ramp a little bit with like a squadron of Hydras or something, since he has the money to replace it quickly. But big wave of hallucinated Phoenix are gonna go through, gets the revelation off. But I don't know what he's gonna have to fight now. The Broodlords and the Infested are getting on top of his bases.
Yeah. He still has so many High Templar. Like, when there is a fight, it'll be a lot of storms.
I'm just waiting for a Fungal to hit the 3 prisons all loaded with High Templar for them to all die without unloading.
I mean, Fungal's...
I'll cry.
As Harstem moves, he's naturally going to clump up here, and Fungals will be disastrous for any part of this army, honestly. Even the Archons, which can really...
Yeah, so he traded out some supply. What's he got? What's he going for? Some more Hydras just coming out. 6 more Spore Crawlers. He didn't have enough, you know. In my opinion, 75 Spore Crawlers is not the tipping point, right? No, nobody looks at 3/4 and says like, "Hey, we're rich," right? You want to have that extra dime in there.
Yeah, Harstem didn't think 19 High Templars was enough. Made 21.
Yeah, exact. 21 High Templars versus 80 Spores. Who would win?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's kind of surprising, though. Like, it really feels like Nerchio's kind of won this game. There's been no response from Harstem that gives us a lot of hope.
He's adding 9 more Infestors.
Yeah, okay. So I guess to just, like, draw back and talk, you know, theoretical here, like, Harstem has been the one inviting these Zergs to play the super late game. He has not had any super aggressive openers.
That's what I was saying. I miss seeing, like, that from, like, me, right? Where it was like, just try to get something done a little bit more earlier. Yeah,
even when they go to a 4th base, we typically see Protoss kind of like position and maneuver, and sometimes that backfires, especially on like open maps like Automaton, but we didn't even see that. Like, he really just said, you know what, you get to dictate the pace of this game, and I'll follow you, and he's unfortunately found himself in this position, but...
He's recovered decently, right? But now he steps out onto creep. There's the Neural on the mothership. Infested Terrans get thrown out to distract and blow up the interceptors. And it's actually gotten most of those Infested Terrans out. This is where that storm is useful. Mothership dies.
Question mark? Question mark? Not so poorly? Question mark? I mean, he still has
21 High Templar. You can destroy all the Infested Terrans.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not getting a ton done. Here they come now.
Red
and they are
still standing tall.
Through the interceptors. Here come the storms of the Corruptors. This was not a bad position at all for Harstem to take. He had the high ground. He had, I guess, units actually kind of far away from each other, so they weren't as effective. And he had so many storms that the energy-based units popping out here didn't actually completely kill him.
Storming the Infested Terran is a pretty sick play there. They do so much damage, but it's definitely one of the best ways to eliminate them. Oh, well, 80 spores, excuse me. One of them is bound to land a hit.
Now he can start bullying Nerchio here, since he's missing a lot of those important units that stopped the encroaching Protoss army, so he's going to lose Spore Crawlers.
Nerchio doesn't have a crazy larva bank. He's like got less than 20 to work with, which for like his remax abilities, I think gets a little bit tricky. He's got a lot of money, but you need to be careful with where that gas money is going.
It's going up to 29 Corruptors, of which a certain amount will become Broodlords.
Does a good job. Only 69 Spore Crawlers remaining.
Yeah, I thought he was going to kill more than that, but I guess feeling very cautious. He knows that Nerchio has a remax. There's got to be enough larva for at least one. There's got to be enough minerals and gas for at least one. Nerchio's remax was very gas expensive, so that's, I suppose, the good news. He's low on gas now, so it's not an insane amount of infestors, but these Zealots aren't doing so poorly for themselves, are they?
No.
The secret was just to make Zealots all along.
It was all about the Zealots we worked in along the way, Zombie Grub. It's still a little disconcerting that Harstem's down about 10,000 resources lost. and Nerchio's definitely mined more. So there's still a bit of headway to be made up, but because the gas bank's been depleted, we talk about how good those zealots are, zombie grub. What's not going to be as good would be just the Zerglings, because I don't even think we have any melee upgrades.
You're right.
There's no adrenal glands, no melee upgrades at all. So yeah, +1 is actually like just now starting. I think Nerchio's realizing, he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have just Lings to work with, and that's when you beat the Zerg in the late game drawn out. So Harstem's definitely had a rough go of it this game, but he's starting to make it work. However, the carriers with these Zealot Weapons are eating into his mineral count, and there's only one, I guess, fresh is. He's been mining this base in the top right for a while now. He's gonna need to try and get that top right corner base.
Yeah, and to be a little critical of Nerchio, he probably could have taken an extra base or two much faster. That bottom left one was just being saturated as he lost the army, right?
Yeah.
Middle right one has never been taken, and I am glad he's taken Harstem's.
I imagine a world where he floods out like 100 Zerglings just into the natural and the main, right? Is there really?
Yes.
Is there really much there? Like the army's so.
Oh
far
no! Oh my God! Okay, they didn't actually die. They're good. We're okay.
I'm like, the army's so far away. If he forces a recall, then he can just attack the top right. If the army never comes, then he can just gut the main and natural.
Yeah. There's some open opportunities for harassment for Nerchio now that Harstem has completely migrated that fleet over to the right side to take the top right. But they will have to be upgraded to be effective. They are laughable right now.
He can get adrenal glands too, but he still has not started that one.
Maybe not thinking about it.
Also,
I mean,
no +3 ground carapace for Nerchio as well. Which I'm only going to bring up because Harstem got level 3 shields and level 3 air armor. Harstem did not get ground armor upgrades, but
never. Which maybe could have helped in some situations.
For the army that he's building, right? Ground armor is not going to be the determining factor. Level 3 shields is definitely more important for all the Archons that he playing around with.
And High Templars, if they're getting attacked, are usually just going to die. So that is wide open. The Stalker that was there from the beginning of the game is long gone.
There you go. This is all I was waiting for. I'm just like, all right, at some point this needed to happen.
If these were 3/3 adrenal glands though, actually, it'd be main base would be taken down right now.
Shield upgrades do affect buildings.
They do.
So the Zerglings are having a bit of a rough go of it, trying to rip apart these +3 shield structures.
But the Hydras were helping as well. It looks like Nerchio thought maybe the army was going to respond. Somehow he pulls back.
He was hoping to bait him.
Well, there's no reason really to pull back, I feel, with Lings. Like either, well, I guess he assumed there was going to be warp-ins, which there were. And again, they are not well upgraded, but...
All right, start your +2 melee. Start adrenal. There we go. Adrenal starts.
Awesome.
+2 melee. Give it to me, Nerchio.
Eventually.
Do it.
Eventually. Now, Nerchio also might kind of be like, maybe he was panicked for a second there, but he is gaining that gas bank back. He's also gaining hatcheries again, so he has taken the middle bases. So he might be thinking like, oh, no, you know what? No, I don't actually need Lings. Hold on. Like, let's bank up gas again instead of going for the +2, which I don't necessarily blame him. He's going to be careful.
Yoink.
I mean, again, the feedbacks just aren't as deadly as they once were. An attack like that should cost them those 2 Vipers. Or Infestors or whoever else was on the front line. But instead, just loses the carrier, Harstem.
Oh yeah, he's like, please send your interceptors over now that I've got infested Terrans, and he's going to get to abduct on the High Templar, gets another High Templar.
It's always a little weird to abduct High Templars, because they can, unless it's against like damage or something, they usually get that storm off before they die.
Yep.
Or feedback, whatever. But so we're still on a very high Templar count, 18.
But I mean, we're finally at the point where Harstem can't really refill his supply on like gassy units. He's barely pulling in. Income-wise, we've still got about 1,000 gas a minute coming in for Nerchio. Maybe it'll drop soon. He should be losing a geyser or two. But Harstem's only pulling in about 250. Maybe 350, and that's not going to be enough to sustain these losses of Tempest. Another one gets abducted. And also, his mineral count is being kept in check because we've got, how many now? 60. Only 60 spores. So he's really put a dent in this spore crawler count, but gets a neural parasite off on a Tempest and then abducts it.
Yeah, you can see that there's almost an opportunity there for Harstem, but the combination of the spore crawlers and whatever infested Terran energy was left over is still too scary, and there's a ton.
Well, he's down to sub 60 spore crawlers, only 59 remaining for 50 interceptors to kill.
Ooh. Well,
almost 1 spore per interceptor.
Harstem is finding where they're not as dense. It's not forest. It's a I don't know, like
It's
sprinkling.
the right way to do it. I would
is.
have liked to see this kind of jockeying a bit more earlier if he could have managed it.
Yeah.
Especially with how well, honestly, the High Templar have really done a great job at keeping. Because like in a normal game, if you do get infested, Terran bombed, and you're not able to clear them out, they will kill this whole army in like 2 seconds.
Well, I haven't. Yeah, he's been doing a pretty good job. Like, I say pretty good, really good job of not letting them just die to a bunch of fungals, something like that, something really silly.
You got a solid storm, but.
I almost wonder if it'd be worth it for Nerchio to try and include Banelings. There are so many storms that maybe it's impossible they reach the High Templars, but imagine like 2 Banelings reaching High Templars. They're pretty clumped up, but
this army's starting to get some work done. They're great storms in the Templar, and really the biggest issue is just making sure that you don't get caught off guard without the proper number of carrier interceptors.
oh, that bad rally is gonna cost me tempos. I assume it was bad rally.
Owie.
Yeah. So Harstem's getting into that position, by the way, where he's not gonna be able to replace interceptors.
The base.
So his carriers are going to be just dead weight if this game continues on like this, as the Lings
Yeah, he's out of money. All his bases are
gonna
mined
take out every single bit of mining.
He had maybe a few pennies in the top right, but guess what? That base is DED, zombie grub.
And he can't really, if he puts down 400 minerals on a Nexus, that's, I mean, how many servers is he going to make from that? Like 4 more? And he's currently rebuilding them. He needs to rebuild them. That might be the tipping point. Well, it probably already is tipped over here.
Yeah.
'Cause he can't break this Spore Crawler line.
Resources lost 71,000 versus 58,000. Very efficient play from Nerchio, and he mined a lot more. He was able to put that into all the static defense that Harstem would, I don't even know, like with the amount of money he has, could he actually push through 48 Spore Crawlers with just his carriers? I don't know. Everything else got chipped away at pretty hard. Neural Parasite to grab one of these Tempests, try to turn it against him.
Look how many carriers don't have interceptors.
Yeah.
Like, he's already out of them. I mean, the Storms are still doing what they can, and the Infestors are out of energy. And it's like Templars aren't quite yet, so maybe he's finding some victories, but I don't think he wins the actual war.
And Harstem is officially broke. So he spent his last couple pennies. He's like, well, I've got some gas. I'll make 2 more Archons, back to basics, but
oh, you know, I thought those were out of energy.
enough.
They weren't.
46 minutes in, GG Nerchio takes game number 1.
That took a very long time. It was 48 minutes, I believe.
It did, yes. And, well, these guys don't have too much to do with their Saturday. That's fine, neither do we. We're here to just watch StarCraft and hang out.
Yes.
And we'll see if Harstem's going to be able to bring it back. He's having a hard time. He's riding the struggle bus versus the Zerg.
He is.
And this is not the day to do it when you've got to play against 3 Zergs.
And it's so weird, too. Unfortunately, I didn't get to catch any of his qualifier to get here, where he played nothing but Zergs, I believe. But it just, like, it's not the Harstem I thought I was going to see. I'm not saying that he never plays late game. He definitely does. But I really thought there was going to be some, you know, build order flexing, you know, a couple of cheeses, a couple of aggressive openers, and it's just been
a little more spicy.
Yeah.
Just like a little cayenne pepper on that build. You know what I mean? Just a little bit. Give it some kick. But so far it's been very straightforward.
Yeah. I was already on the, you know, the train that, like, Harstem should probably mix things up and be more aggressive after his first series. And then after that game, you got to figure that he also is like, no, I'm not doing that again. So maybe it's a completely different map. And
I don't want
it's actually year 0. Please no.
It was painful to watch, right? And it's like not that necessarily that Harstem played bad, but it felt like, watching from his perspective, like it was a helpless position. Nerchio did such a good job eating the whole map, building upwards of 80 Spore Crawlers and like 30 Spines everywhere.
Yep.
It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to send 6 Archons to the right side. No, there's like 10 Hydras and 8 Spines over here. Good luck.
Yeah, and his War Prisms couldn't even get by. The Overlord spread plus the creep means that every time Hydras would find it.
No, Nerchio just played it really, really well. I mean, I feel like Nerchio comes into this series, and this first game says to me that he was hoping Harstem would play like he did against the Laser.
Yeah.
And Nerchio's like, please, yes, let's do this. Let's play a very long game. And then the Protoss, your brain goes back to like where you were a year ago, and you're like, well, if I can just get a good amount of carriers with upgrades, I'm fine. And then it's like, no, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Let's also not forget, that was such a long game, but Harstem had a pretty bad opener.
Yes.
He did have himself already set up to kind of be forced to play a late game. You know, and the chances are if you have a bad opener, maybe you can push the time a little bit and it doesn't matter as much. But
Maybe
but
a depth pressure felt okay, but the Prism loss was
right,
huge
exactly.
with the Archons, and the 4th base getting shut down,
yes.
also huge.
Yes, but it still was the case that he obviously wasn't doing anything more aggressive than the previous 2 games, the previous series.
Right, right.
So it's like, yeah, that was a bad start. That sets you up poorly for the rest of the game. But do you really gamble that saving your War Prism, maybe doing a tad bit more harassment, is going to give you a better late game on year 0? Than that last game? Do you really do that?
No.
I would
Year
be scared.
0 is the map to go late game, right? So.
Yeah, well, it's the and more power to you. If you want to do that, you're probably going to get it. But then Nerchio is. Yeah.
Do you want to go through that again?
Exactly.
Do you want to traumatize yourself with the late game Zerg army? No one does.
I don't know about that. I mean, year 0 is maybe like. King's Cove is probably the most macro. When you get the 4th base secured, that is. The 4th base sometimes is the struggle. But year 0, maybe a little more of that vertical expansion process. Maybe it's harder to go from bottom to top. But even then, like, when you're on an air army, you can just jump over any of those podiums.
And I would like to see Nerchio as well try to look for some more of those aggro opportunities. Because in that last game, it took him forever to just do an attack on like the natural. And it looked like it did really well, but he just never got the upgrades to follow it up.
Yeah.
And then he never did another attack there either. And I'm like, if you've got 6,000 minerals and no gas, I'm like, throw another round of Zerglings at this base. Like, just gut check him, right? He can't be everywhere, especially because he ended up rotating like all the way around the top right side. So it's like, no, of course this area is super soft.
Yeah. Nerchio might also not be really too tempted to play another game like that. He probably, because there was a point in that last game where even Nerchio was probably a little bit scared. He had not transitioned to Broodlords yet, and the 4th base was up and running with a close to maxed out Protoss army, and that's always a scary position for Zergs. So maybe he's like, I'm not going to chance that again, or maybe he just doesn't want to play 15 minutes. But we are talking about 2 players that have run through all 8 years of metas. So they both have been patient before.
They've been everywhere. They've seen everything. Harstem and Nerchio, tale as old as StarCraft 2, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps even further back than that. But I'll be honest with you, this is the only game I know anything about, Zombie Grub. In the top left position, as the red Protoss player trailing in this series, he is Harstem.
Into the top right. Oh my god, I forgot that game started off with that hatchery too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The hatch Evo bomb.
In the top right, not going for that. It is the blue Zerg Nerchio.
I wonder if he would think it was worth it. From what I saw, he didn't really do too much with it. I guess he kept him from building the Nexus immediately, but it didn't seem to slow Harstem down too much, especially because he didn't try to play around the hatch. He just immediately turned it into the Evo bomb without having pulled probes or... Like sometimes like the Zerg just finishes the hatch if they don't really make a commitment, and then it does take quite a while to kill that.
Yes, it does. If you're actually full on cheesing and the Protoss player is like, no, you wouldn't do that, and they underestimate it, it can be really bad. But I'm with you. I didn't really think it was that worth it. Harstem only changes build up by making a Zealot, I believe. So not overreacting at all.
That's not the end of the world either. So because you still have the. You have the money lost from having to cancel the hatchery, right? Then there's the money to actually build this Evo chamber because it finished. And then there's the drone, right? And we were talking about how early that drone went out. You were mentioning it. It could have been mining resources that whole time.
It's an I don't know. Like those builds were at one point literally just to throw off the Protoss, and that's great, but that was a very long time ago. Actually, that was maybe back in Pro League.
Yeah, well, that last game also just took so long, we forget that. It was that hatch block, but then also losing a War Prism with 2 Archons in it was definitely not what Harstem wanted to have happen either.
Yeah. And maybe he was evaluating the last series and was like, you know what? There were some openings I didn't take advantage of. And if the War Prism had lived, he would have been able to kind of read into the situation more, and he would have been more aggressive. There is those what-ifs. When you have a bad start like that, it just feels like Harstem has come into today's group saying, you know what, I had really great late games EVPs, that's what I'm going to do. And unfortunately, he's up against the 2 Zergs that that aren't falling to it. But then in Control brought up that, Laser and him were practicing a lot, and I don't know how that went late game, but I don't know, just not the Protoss I expected coming out here with the all Zerg opponents. I thought it would be much more like, you know what? I know that Nerchio does not go for roaches. He absolutely does, but just hypothetical. I'm going to do something that abuses that. But it's not. It's just super late game, and it has not worked out for him.
Extremely standard PvZ styles, what it feels like. Just I'm going to go Stargate into my Archon drop, and then we'll just kind of see what happens from there. Has not been going crazy well for him. So it's an Oracle opening. The Adept kind of poked. Now it's coming back.
We have not seen the Stargate opening since the very first game from Harstem, which he lost the Oracle, followed up into the Archon drop. He's going to go for 2 Oracles here. So already a bit of a change up, so I'm already getting a little bit more excited, even though it's really not much yet. Roach Warren, very safe time for Nerchio, as he gets also the Spore Crawlers at that kind of perfect time. Usually it's 2 Spore Crawlers, and then you kind of guess where the Oracle's not going to go. But he only went for 1.
Right. So that could be him trying to find this opportunity. Like if he were to go straight to the natural, for example, with both Oracles, could get a lot of drones.
3 Oracles.
The Spore is in the main. Ooh, is this like...
Is he still hiding that Stargate? He absolutely is.
It's going to be one of those cheeky builds.
Okay.
He kills the Spore anyway. Whatever's there, he just kill it all.
Yeah, so, I mean, Nerchio might be able to read into these gas timings a little bit. The robo opener we saw from the last 2 games from Harstem, I think, had fairly fast double gas in the natural, but, like, he does not know it's Stargate. He does not know that Oracles are being banked up. If there were Depths also being banked up, they might be at the top side of the pylon, something like that. So it could be dangerous, but it is... Okay, there we go. More Adepts being warped in. So it is going to be that attack, and maybe seeing the Adepts, he'll fish out there's also an Oracle, or 2, or in this case 3. But is he going to be able to protect himself against both? Will the Overlord see the Oracles? Nope, they don't. Nope. So that is a lot of damage. That is actually damage that can go ahead and attack into, a handful of Roaches, for instance, that are prepared. But, well, it's going to be a few more than a handful. We're going to have about 8? I don't know. And then back on a droning.
Yeah, well, ideally your Adepts are going to do some damage, but also soak so that those Oracles can do their work. And there he throws the Shade, so maybe looking to try to get onto the ramp and then fight somewhere that the Oracles can support those Adepts, but no, actually pulls back the Adepts and just sends in the Oracles. Wow, one of them dies without doing too much, gets just a Queen and now a few drones. We talked about how there's no Spore here. The rest of the Queens are going to come in, gets a Revelation as well. 5 drones. Don't know how I feel about this whole situation just yet.
Yeah, it's a few more, and he still has 2, so that's always going to be deadly to the, the gas drones or just dodging around the Spore Crawler and the natural, which again has no Spore Crawler. So he's finally getting something. Initially that looked like it was going to go very poorly, losing the Oracle immediately, the Adepts not being able to do anything, but he's kind of bringing it back. 12 ends up not being so bad. He managed to save 5 Adepts, looks like, with that recall, so also not bad. I think he had like 7. I could literally go to units lost, but I'm lazy, I suppose. Yep, 7. I was math. It's pretty good.
Math is fun.
Yeah. So that overall was not too bad for what looked to be like a really poor start.
So yeah, it's nice that we get something a little bit different, right? Because we've had a very, 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 very basic look out of Harstem so far, but now he's kind of done a little bit of a different strategy. He's pushed a bit of a different way. +1 attack is coming in, getting a Phoenix. I imagine that this Phoenix mostly just to bully away those Overlords, right? So the transition probably comes with this Twilight Council. Maybe just get charge Archon, charge out Archon Immortal, some sort of attack timing he could set himself up for if he wants.
Yeah. I wonder if Harstem predicted both of his Zerg opponents, whoever they might be, but a Laser obviously, and then probably Nerchio. I wonder if he predicted them to be very aggressive in the mid game, because certainly we've seen them be super aggressive in mid game. So he really, was quite eager to crank out that Storm, get a decent Archon count. If he opens up this way, you obviously don't have as quick of a Storm, but if you don't need it, then...
Yeah. Well, look at the gateway count, right? Like, he's really ramping that production up. 4 more gateways are coming in. He's getting his production together. And I think that puts us, put us squarely around 10 warp gates. Plenty of opportunity to crank those units out.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I feel like Harstem predicted his Zerg players to play a certain way. And even when they did, he just got kind of like unlucky and a little too passive in these games. So I like that he's changing things up entirely. Now he's still not moving out.
That's definitely the biggest worry.
Yeah, he's still not moving out. He's still going to go ahead and wait for that storm. Oh, I mean, you kind of have to before you move out. But anyways, like it's no mid-game attack, but it's a different start, and maybe it'll bait Nerchio into thinking that he can do something when he can't. I mean, these stasis traps are actually a big bait. This could be disastrous if Nerchio thinks he has a slight opening because the army's still pretty small.
Yeah, so some of these forces start to maraud around, and we talk about the strengths of these army compositions. I mean, I love it with the Immortals, get the charge in there, a couple Archons, but you need to be very aware of what the Zerg is doing. 6 drop Overlords are being morphed for Nerchio, so we could see him try to go for a huge Doom drop inside of that main base once Revelation wears off. This kind of makes those Oracles so much more important, really being able to stay on top of that Zerg army, making sure that nothing just kind of flies around. Because you're worried about stuff like Nidus, you're worried about stuff like Mutas, and all the things that a Zerg can do to catch off guard. But getting caught off guard by a big drop can be really, really difficult. 6 Overlords worth of Roach Hydra is it's gonna hurt. Here we go.
Yeah, he does have some units looking exactly for that, though. So he'll have a bit of a tell. But his army is going to be slightly out of position, protecting that third choke as it is, and that will do a decent amount of damage to at least the pylons. Harstem already going into that fleet beacon once again. So sometimes I feel like that jump forward into defending against the Hive would have been better put into actually just attacking before the Hive, but
yeah,
Harstem obviously disagrees. So he's going to defend against these actually pretty darn well. Pretty good split there.
That's kind of what we've seen before, right? So he's just kind of saying, all right, you want to play the crazy late game? Screw it, let's go. And Nerchio's like, God, at least let me try to kill you before we get there. He's like, I don't want to play another 45-minute game.
Yeah, right? Well, if Nerchio wasn't going for a Hive, if he was going for a maxed out attack right there, then I feel like he could have a decent either third base attack or maybe the drop does do something. But if Harstem's on top of it, then he is, and the drop's not going to work out. I still love that Nerchio's trying to do that, and behind it, he is preparing for that late game, so this is not all in. Just looking for possible run-bys at this point, keeping Harstem off of 4th. This Phoenix does scout the Hive, which is at the 3rd, by the way. I didn't mention that. It's kind of odd, but it's going to be more popular.
Wants to be really hard to scout and also make that
Yep.
base a lot more chunky.
Yep, you get more health the more you advance forward on those layer and Hive, whatever. Actually, I don't know. Do you know how much it is per like additional health it is?
Yeah, so hatchery is 1,500. I think it just goes up 500.
Okay, by 500.
Yeah. The 2,500 hit point Hive is the most chonky, thick building in StarCraft.
Yes. It's also, you know, thing that people are going to try and target down if they can, but in this type of game, I don't know how possible it is for that third base to be attacked unless Harstem is able to bully Nerchio back here. We do not have the Greater Spire done. This is when maybe those infestors would have been out and Spore Crawlers.
This is the time. This is the opportunity. Stasis Ward got a huge chunk of those roaches held back as well. Zealot attack in the bottom right. Harstem gonna try and make it happen here.
This is already looking like a much better game. I mean, Nerchio, he made a mistake that a laser didn't, for instance. Like, he already went to Corruptors without, like, already dealing with this ground army, and that might just kill him. 5 reloads are on the way in a place that you cannot attack them, especially with only 1 Archon for your anti-air. No, 2. Well, 1 back to 1. But the Hive is going to go down. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Perfect position for this army to get the Hive. And, yeah, the Broodlords are going to come out, but Tempests are on the way. And one key ingredient missing in this concoction zombie grub is Vipers.
Yes, spellcasters are missing. Nerchio didn't perhaps get... Oh, okay, we'll speak economy.
Oof,
maybe didn't get the smoothest economy possible because there was an attack earlier on, but then now has even less. Has 36 drones in total go down. The Corruptors find the Warp Prism, but not before it warps in some more Zealots, and Nerchio is also maybe going to lose his base. +2. Yep, goes down.
Nice.
Nicely done, and more drones. More and more drones.
42 drones dead here.
Very nice. This is the attack that I was kind of hoping to see every game. And again, that, you know, the one versus a laser and automaton, just props to a laser for even holding against that. But that's the thing that, you know, I feel like would be a weakness. And then behind it, Harstem also goes into his own late game response. And this feels like such a stronger game. It feels like a Harstem game as it is right now, although his 4th base was considerably late for that attack, right?
Right.
So that's the downside here. But he caught so many
weird.
bases. I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's really weird for me because Nerchio has a big army with a lot of power behind it, but doesn't exactly have a way to deal with the Tempest because the Corruptor count's not really there. He doesn't have any way to abduct, and he has a lot of Hydralisks. But if there's one thing that we can definitely say Harstem does not skip, it is his storms. He's got 7 Templar, most of them at maxed energy, and that's also with the support of 5 Archons and that big mama ship.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to see that Harstem is not giving up on the aggression. Even if he doesn't find a way to push through, he'll probably be able to, you know, bite off a couple of Broodlords there, a couple Hydras there, maybe actually get to a base once again, as he has limited Nerchio to the 4 that are as far away as possible, and then the middle 2 are going to be a little bit more difficult to grasp. But if Harstem does play passive, if he is too scared to ever push in or even touch Nerchio's army, then that's when Nerchio, who has replenished that drone count at least to 60, who has gotten for hatcheries.
Every moment that Harstem gives Nerchio here is like he is lowering the rope. He's like, come on up, buddy. Didn't mean to knock you down.
And that's already showing here with 8 Infestors and Neural Parasite on the way.
Yeah, and like if that finishes,
it's crunch time.
You've got so many other things to worry about.
Crunch time, Nerchio.
Leaves him a bit of a present there.
Okay.
Have some Hydras. Heard you were hungry.
The Archons now feel useless, but the Tempests are still just wailing away the Broodlords. There's nothing to stop them.
No threat of abduct, so you can poke away at the Tempest all he wants. Your only fear would kind of be the Neural Parasite, but you've got Revelation, and Neural's not done yet. So
yeah, but it's okay. So he initially got this really awesome attack because, well, basically Nerchio wasn't paying attention, so he got like 20 units and just said thank you very much. But if he continues to not really push in, then maybe Nerchio can add on those spellcasters. But Nerchio is continuing to bleed off supply. He's trying to go for a run by, try to pull this army back. It absolutely does not work. It's going to be dealt with a couple of Zealot Warp-ins, and Harstem is on the literal front door of Nerchio's natural. He is about to push in. He absolutely can. There are still no Vipers. No Parasite is done, and the Tempest on the front lines, but is that going to be enough? Oh, there's no burrow. He can't burrow nor Parasite.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I don't think he had burrow. The neural while burrow is definitely the focus there, because otherwise it's very easy to kill those Infestors.
Harstem?
I think he gets the neural there on the... Looked like he tried to grab it on the Oracle to pull back in, but not able to make that work either. Yeah, Nerchio just taps out. GG. Well done by Harstem, and I think we both agree. We were talking about this in the first game. Harstem, try to get aggressive, try to make something happen. He does do that this game. It pays off. The Oracle Adept thing at the start was like, it's like, oh, that's cute. I feel like, and I don't want to talk down Harstem, but it's like you can see it doesn't feel like he's crazy used to doing that because it was a little bit of miscontrol in the one Oracle.
Yeah.
The Adepts weren't able to find a spot. But I'm like just going for that sort of flow with it was so much better. Like he really got a lot more done. Getting an actual attack in before he had to deal with the Hive Tech. And a lot of this, of course, can come back to he didn't have like an early investment that he just threw away, like the Warp Prism with the Archons in it, and he wasn't knocked off of that base. You did mention that he took a very late 4th, but I guess it didn't matter with the amount of damage he did, so it was all good anyway.
Yeah, that was fine. That was still, it worked out so perfectly because he didn't only have the 1 attack, he had 2 other Zealot run-bys. So if he didn't have those other Zealot run-bys, if it was only the 20 drones plus the Hive, it actually could have been the time that Nerchio gets infested Terrans.
That Hive kill is huge. The Hive kill is huge too.
Yeah.
Because even with all the drones that he lost, if he has the Hive Tech available, and he doesn't have to rebuild the lair and then the Hive, just getting out a few Vipers could have been huge when those Tempests started to poke on the west side between the natural and that 3rd base again. Just get a couple of Adducts, easy. Or even if he had just realized that he was going to need Burrow a little bit sooner, could have helped a ton.
Yeah, that just seemed like he didn't realize. There were so many things going poorly for him in that game as opposed to the previous one where it was like after 10 minutes or whatever, it was like, okay, you'll do your thing, I do my thing. So, of course, you're going to have everything set up better in that type of game. But I do really like that Harstem mix it up. I agree, the Oracle Adept attack, I'm sure he does it all the time. These guys play tons of games. But that was such an... It ended up looking awkward, and it only barely got enough.
Yeah, it was.
2 Oracles.
It was like when he dove into the Spore and got the extra 3, and I was like, okay, 8 drones. I feel a bit better about the Oracle that he lost because then he kept the other 2 alive for a while. And we're loading into the final map of this series. It's gonna be on Cyber Forest.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's gonna be that exact same way to mix things up in the early game, but At least it'll be something else. This is the first game 3 that we had today.
We did it, Zombie Grub.
We did it.
We've gotten away from the 2-0s. We know you guys like your long StarCraft matches.
Hey, this one already over the hour mark, I believe.
Yep, we are there. We are there, Zombie Grub. In the top left, spawning as the red Protoss player. He is Harstem, the Dutchman. I'm sure Rotterdam is out there watching. We always have to give him a shout out every show. It's in our contracts. Hi, Roddy. We love you. Chat loves you too.
In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg for Team Makers, it is Nerchio. Actually, I think he's at the Thermi Cup right now.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. They tweeted a pic. Some guy, like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was, like, using an iPad as his display to play StarCraft. I'm like, wowzers.
Passion, man.
Yeah. It's like, it is a, like, with when there's, like, tons of units and stuff, like, people always talk about, it's like, yeah, well, like, StarCraft can be a demanding game to run, but the minimum specifications for this game are pretty forgiving. I think when this launched, it was like a Pentium 4. Which I don't think most of our audience, actually, okay, StarCraft viewers are a little bit older, but I'd say a lot of people on Twitch probably don't even know what that is.
That's the really nice thing about most Blizzard games, maybe until Overwatch, but even then I'm not sure. But like a lot of them...
I haven't tried to play Overwatch on a toaster yet.
A lot of them aren't that demanding, and they also worked on Macintosh, which is what like I was using when I was young, so that's the reason I played like Warcraft, for instance, to work on my Mac. But yeah, it's not that demanding. And while it still sucks to have limited vision on that monitor, because that's what happened to me. Like I had a laptop that was like a very small screen, and I was like, StarCraft's fun. And then I got like an actual monitor, and I was like, it's so much easier.
Yes.
So it's still doable.
Yeah, I had a 4:3 monitor when StarCraft 2 came out. It was very painful.
Yeah.
The health bars look really weird, by the way. If you ever play this on a non-widescreen resolution, health bars look really weird.
I bet. That's I've also like there's so many things I've gotten so used to that I cannot live without anymore, which is like game heart, right? Like I'm not a caster unless I have game heart, and then there's also I have to bring a monitor with me when I travel if I want to play games.
Yeah.
Such a snob. But anyways, we have that Robo opener, but with a Stalker first. Yeah, Stalker first, so the Adept. I mean, that's a very small difference. He just has a probe scouting, and that's it. But Nerchio isn't doing anything, probably wouldn't do anything this early.
Well, at this point in the last game, the Year Zero map, like he was kind of getting for that Stargate, right, and pocketing the Oracles, and Nerchio didn't send an Overlord inside. So for all he knows, the same thing is happening again, or, you know, maybe just very slight variation, even though we know, since we can see everything as we are all-knowing, all-powerful. It's just that Warp Prism with the Twilight. Probably straight into Templar Archives. Starts the charge before doing anything else, though. I like it. I like it. Big Zealot play, maybe?
Maybe. I did bring this up with In Control that he has a like macro based, right? Like it's harassment, but it's still macro with the charge lot. And a War Prism, but absolutely you could throw on a lot of gateways.
Immortal.
Could add still out on the Templar Archives, but it's actually an Immortal, yeah, exactly, with those additional gateways. And this could be, I mean, it's different. It's very different than anything Harstem has shown before. So no matter what happens here, Nerchio is probably going to be surprised. He's been going for the same kind of like, you know, decent number of lings, start off against a potential Adept. This one didn't even have an Adept. And then like 8 Roaches to defend against whatever else can come at him. That's kind of been Nerchio's safety plan there. But if he doesn't realize that there's an actual attack on the way, whether it's, you know, totally all in or just, you know, dedicated pressure, then maybe he produces Roaches. But he does dip in there with the Overlord and sees I think he was looking exactly for the gases, which there are none, which is very different than any other build that Harstem has shown, right? So I think he's figuring things out kind of based off that. Maybe not. He goes back into droning. Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, the potential here is really big.
Oh, no. Oh,
a Zergling patrolling.
He doesn't even have speed?
I'm following Nerchio's vision.
No.
He saw the Prism.
No, but
he's just got those drones coming in.
He's still producing
Roach
drones.
Speed. He's got, I think he thinks he has enough Roaches to push back an Archon drop, and now he gets the first look at the Immortal there. And it's, I mean, he's going to start building Roaches. He starts canceling structures that he has underway. Don't know that that's going to be enough, though. Big attack from the Dutchman coming up.
It's so fast, right? Nerchio gets up to a kind of decent, maybe holdable count of 53 drones, but the attack is pretty fast. Not a lot of units yet. That's because he's reducing them as he attacks. The Warp Prism is still untouched here, but the Queens are going to start looking for it, and it's actually left a little bit alone. Uh-oh, Harstem.
You got to save that Prism. That is the key to this whole strategy.
Spore Coiler being brought forward is a nice idea as well. It's also something that the Zealots might target instead of a couple of Roaches. But speaking of Roaches, that Roach Warren did go down, and he is on speedless Lings. They are not very helpful against Zealots no matter what anyways.
Can only build very slow Zerglings. Prism is going to make its way over there. Drones being pulled off to fisticuff against these Zealots. That's never going to go well for you as a Zerg player. Another Warpin coming in. And that spray earlier in this game, perhaps a bit of premeditated.
You know what though?
Zerg slaughter.
Okay, that's so many drones going down that I think this might still work out. But yeah, the concave, the Zealots and the Immortals weren't always working together hand in hand. There were just so many units that were coming out, and even though Slowlings look laughable, they are something that's being targeted instead of the Roaches, instead of the Queens. And this is gonna have to go in a macro game, exactly. Like, Harstem is not well set up really for it, but he does have some technology. He is finally getting those gases, and he did kill a lot of drones with still the potential for more with this Warp Prism.
It's also the easiest micro of your life. This is so slow.
Indeed. This is easy. I mean, it's, again, laughable that they are taking 3 shots, but they will eventually go down. Oh, along with Nerchio's internet, perhaps. Is it Nerchio again? That was a guess, and it was correct.
Why would you do that, Zombie Grove?
What?
If you hadn't said that, it would have been one of the other casters.
Yeah, totally, because
it's okay.
That's how that would work. My bad.
It happens.
Well, that is so it's not the worst timing, I suppose, to drop out, right? He had microed his heart out against that attack and has lived. I mean, he's like missing a foot and a finger.
So to take stock after the end of that fight, it's 42 army supply for Nerchio, a lot of Slowlings, a good amount of Roaches. Worker count is the same, 40 apiece. And Harstem did not have that third, right, at that point.
No.
So Nerchio's not in an irrecoverable position. I think the biggest problem maybe comes down to tech, right? Because he's just kind of got Roach speed coming in and nothing else is really going on. Ling speed too, but no upgrades either.
Yeah. I feel like if Nerchio had Ling speed, then maybe he can go ahead and like push through, or try and do a counter of some type. But without it, and also 2-base Protoss, up a ramp, like it's always gonna look nasty. I don't think there's an opportunity for Nerchio to do anything except just kind of defend against the Warp Prism and macro. But that is going to be for a bit later as Nerchio has to restart or whatever he has to do.
Yeah, we're gonna have to replay or reload into the game. We have the wonderful technology. Back in the day, that was like, we would have had to have like an admin call. Like, is it worth it to restart the entire map because we didn't have this power? But now we do.
We would have had to do that, man. That's still, I don't know if you have this, but I have players that they're great people, right? Amazing players, amazing people, and I hate them as a StarCraft fan because they killed someone that I was cheering for, right? Like everyone has that, right? That's me and Marine King. He stole that GSTL victory from partying. I'll never let it go. But anyways.
Well, that to me would be like, that's all the PvT finals. That you saying partying there just makes me think about partying stealing the first Legacy of the Void tournament off of TY with that absurd back rocks behind the main Void Ray build.
Oh yeah,
the blood's still
fun.
boiling over it.
Yeah.
Pylon overcharge. Oh, God.
Yeah, partying. He was like dipping in and out of StarCraft, right?
Yeah.
Right? We were like, where is he? Where is he? And then he would always come back and just be like super aggressive. He'd like learn the new cheese and be like, yeah, let's do that one.
Yep.
It was some harsh times. Legacy of the Void beta was just really hard.
Well, we had Adepts 2-shot everything.
Yes.
They had an upgrade for 100 extra shields. And
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
They had so many. I think in total they had 3 or 4. Like they changed.
The Adept changed a few times.
Few times, say the least.
And what else was there? Well, yeah, pylons could kill stuff. That was pretty sick. Pylons were amazing.
Well, the
Cyclones
Ultra,
in beta were broken.
they were, sure, for a time, and then I feel like people like actually started figuring them out. Because that was the thing that Terrans were doing.
Well, the very first version of the Cyclone, if it locked on, then it could go out of vision, and it would still be locked on as long as it didn't leave range, which was super broken. But yeah, I mean, they got that tweaked back. They got what they used to be like 180 health as well with the lock on.
Yeah. Well, that was, you would, like, I remember people trying to use it against the Ultras, which were 8 armor.
Yeah.
And now they're only 7.
Well, they were good there,
was
just
good,
because the lock-on ability wasn't affected by upgrades, right? But
yeah.
was there anything else insane in the beta? What was insane stuff?
It wasn't really insane. The adepts are the insane thing. Well, basically always.
The adepts were like the big
You
one.
had the one base ghost, which was actually kind of a fun build, but kind
didn't
of also
work either.
weird.
Well, I'll never forget the meme of what was it? They tried to put on the ghost the anti-armor drone. on the
Yes,
ghost.
they tried to make. Oh yes, yeah. They the ghost got. I mean, it's finally found its place pretty much, but that was a big change. Zerg got all buffs. That's all I'll remember.
Yeah.
Saltiness, disruptors. I mean, the whole game
every
was,
Zerg unit got better in Legacy of the Void.
Yes, yeah, but the whole game got better. Like first playing it and trying out all these new items, like the disruptor,
Yeah.
and how fast the game was a trip. It's good.
Disruptor was a fun unit.
I mean, it is still a fun unit.
Yeah, I feel like we don't see it obviously as much because players have gotten very good at handling it and whatnot. But it's one of those units that's gotten adjusted and messed with so much. I'm like, you just gotta leave it alone, man. It's gonna be a controversial unit if it's good, and that's okay because at least it is very hard to use. But we are loaded back into the game, so we'll stop rambling as much. Well, no, we're gonna keep rambling, but we're gonna ramble about this game now instead of random stuff. So the Immortals were still doing the harassment inside of the main base of Nerchio. He has slow lings. Slow lings, not ideal at really dealing with much of anything, to be perfectly honest. Maybe gets that queen there. Just want to avoid getting that prism sniped like on King's Cove. Okay, oof.
The third base does get slapped down alongside the spire of Nerchio. That's well, I guess I wouldn't say that's a bold follow-up, but when Harstem is so low on that army supply and isn't replacing it, right? He's going for the third base, which Sorcerer didn't see, but he doesn't see an army either. Then it's actually perfectly fine. We also might have a lack of sentries initially, so maybe Hallucination never comes in. The War Prism could scout it, but that's very theoretical. As long as Nerchio is paying attention to the War Prism and its harassment, like that shouldn't get that far back into the man.
Yeah, especially now that Ling speed is done. Like, it's just be a little bit easier to push this back. Dark Shrine being added. Well, you mentioned this before. We haven't seen a Dark Shrine from Harstem yet today, and it is finally coming out. Dark Shrine is always very fun. Of course, can be for Archons, but DTs on their own with harassment in the late game is something that I think we don't see enough of. Very good when you have a couple Zealots to kind of tank for them.
Right. Yeah, they swipe pretty hard. The Archons that can be more from them mean that they are going to be used later on in the game as we get into potential mid-game. It's not going to be the smoothest run of a PvZ, but it's kind of what it's getting to. Still continuing to harass with these Immortals. I mean, anything they can grab is great, and keeping tabs on the army, and, you know, this isn't exactly a great... Oh, second War Prism. But one of these War Prisms will see the Mutas, where the alternative would be the Mutas show up in, like, a natural or third base and kill all the probes, right? So that's, like, somewhat good news, too. But Hallucination coming forward could be what sees the Spire, even as the Mutas are already out.
Yeah. So with those Mutas coming out, trying to find the Spire, knock it down, get rid of this harassment force, hopefully, for Nerchio. Yeah, he's going to be able to pick that off. We have the Dark Templar being warped in, and I assume that we'll just see them turn straight into the Archons. There's the fourth one being added now to complete the cycle, but recalls the Prism, just leaves these DTs out here. Interesting. I was wondering if we were going to have more. Wow, more DTs being morphed in. Okay, there we go. So there's the Archon finally starting. But I guess those DTs were trying to see if they could find some pay dirt over there. Muta's in the main base, getting some probe damage. Shield battery will not last forever. And a big roach follow-up coming in behind it. Drones are starting to take some hits, though. Looks like the DTs might be getting to work inside of each of those bases. Ouch! Where's the detection?
This is pretty good. I mean, this is making up for the mutas, literally. Like, they're killing each other's workers at almost the exact same rate. Queen barely doesn't go down, but the DTs, this one goes down. There you go. This one probably also going to go down. Nerchio having to replace that. Also has stopped microing his mutas, although they weren't doing much more. And that was, funnily enough, blow for blow, but who came out ahead, actually. The mutas are still alive. The DTs are not. Actually, that last one should be dying. Very even resource loss trades.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Only one Dark Templar left on the map. It is kind of up there in the top left, going around for a flank on that fourth. There's an Overseer there, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. 5 Immortals on the map for Harstem. He's getting his 6th. So I guess his plan is gear up to have enough to deal with mutas with his army, and then warp in reinforcements back home in defense if he needs to, and just try to make a big push.
It's a lot more mutas. Actually, going into mutas is always kind of, I mean, it's a gamble. I mean, if they have Phoenix production, then maybe it doesn't work out like you would like. Against this type of army, maybe it forces a base trade that you can win. But, you know, they're not exactly units that go toe-to-toe in a direct fight.
I guess he saw that within mutas harassing that there was no Stargate at all.
Yeah.
So he's like, even if you wanted to go Phoenix, they wouldn't have range. And you've been building so many Archons, I guess you like to build Archons.
Yeah.
So I can deal with that.
And it's one of those things that just a lot of Protosses maybe don't expect. Of the 2 types of muta play in this matchup, I would say more often it's just like the 9 or 10. They clear up some probes, they get a Warp Prism perhaps, and it's gone to the different types of units, what we saw earlier today. But if you do go ahead and just go in for more, this could be a surprise that you simply weren't expecting.
Lots of Stalkers.
It's exactly what's happening here.
The King kill the Stalkers immediately. There's the Archon drop onto the Mutalisks. Almost gets the Prism, though, there.
Yeah,
gotta be careful.
Thanks, Shield Battery. And Harstem is not going into Blink. Like, anywhere he goes to try and defend against these mutas is going to be very late, but he isn't going to Blink. He does add on that Stargate, and he is going to try and get Phoenix. This, I feel like, is the reliable answer to mutas, right? Like, if you get to 7 Phoenix, then hopefully it'll be okay, especially if you can also get to range, which that's a little bit out of reach here. If you're just going to depend on Blink Stalkers or Archons, it's so hard to actually keep up with them. Eventually, you just throw your hands up in the air and try and do an attack. But this might be a more stable game if he can get that Phoenix count up. But he is struggling. The harassment's not just messing up his actual, like, not actually killing things, it's also messing up his micro, his macro.
Yeah, this is just painful. This is really painful to watch.
Okay, now he's supply blocked. At least he started another Phoenix before that happens, but this one Phoenix gets taken out.
Instantly. He's just going to Magic Box or try to over the Archons. Gets the kill on 1. And some fancy micro, but I don't know if it's going to be fancy enough, Zombie Grub. These mutas appear to have gotten the job done. Storm should finish using the shield battery to heal it.
That's a smart call right there. A couple of mutas are going to go down to the Stalkers, but the trade is absolutely worth it as all these expensive Stalkers go down. Weren't that helpful to begin with. They're literally time buying, but it's an expensive time bots. Like this is going to be a struggle for Harstem to get up to even like 180 supply, but it is still possible. His production is relatively untouched. He's repowered everything. He's going into that +3, and he is trying to get to a good Phoenix count. It's just taking a long time.
This is really, really rough because, like, back home, Nerchio also established like a lot to defend with. Like, he's got 41 Roaches, 25 Banelings. Crashing those Banelings into this army would be absolutely devastating. He goes for a run by on this base. Okay, solid force fields though. Does get the sentries.
Yeah. These High Templars were safely back in the mineral line. The Phoenix count up to almost 5 here. That's when things get like a little bit easier, and they're. Well, no, there's more mutas, never mind. So it's still a count you have to be so careful with. If you get up to like 10 or again with range, that's the real like, okay, I think I can deal with this. But Harstem, not up there yet. Also, does he have a big enough ground army to combat what Nerchio is throwing at him soon, as Nerchio is entirely maxed out. 60 army supply ahead. That's a lot of Roaches. Oh, the pops shields on the Immortals from the mutas is always such a nice little combo right there. And Nerchio just needs to be wary of those storms, which he's being very aware of, and actually finds an opening in the natural.
Yep, the Roaches are going to try to squeeze their way through. I mean, we talk about how many Immortals there are. The Phoenix and the Archons got to protect those Immortals.
You know what? That's not so bad. That was not so bad. So much of the Roach army went into the natural, where it's not really doing a ton of damage yet. Should be digging into the probe count now. There we go. But left all their buddies behind meant that Harstem was taking on, you know, half the army at a time. And actually has dealt with it. Only losing 11 probes, maybe a little bit more as the Muta's bypass. Those overseers, just kidding.
13 more Mutalisks for Nerchio.
That's very scary. I mean, that was a hold. It just is Harstem is going to start getting desperate about his minerals soon enough.
Yeah, well, Harstem's broke. Like, the main's pretty much dead. Natural's running out. These Archons get pounced on by the Mutas, which we talked about. He's building more of. He's got +2 melee coming in for the Lings and Banes. It's a dire situation to be in, because if you're Nerchio, really the only thing that matters right now is that you just don't let Harstem get that extra base, and you don't throw away all these Mutas, because then Harstem might be able to just move across the map and kill you.
Yeah, every time we see a direct fight like that, you know, keep in mind that Harstem is basically got the direct counter in a direct fight. You know, there's so many Immortals against so many Roaches, and then any amount of Archons against the Mutas. So the Mutas are sometimes not even a part of the fight. Now the Corruptors against the Phoenix are going to have even more difficult of a time.
Well, the Corruptors are going to body block against the Phoenix, and then the Mutas are just going to kill everything. So he's going to try to force a base trade or something like that.
Yeah, but the Mutas...
Caustic Spray, too, if he wants.
Yeah. I think that's the way it goes. And it's just, if you can't get that Phoenix count up, right, that seems to be the way things ultimately go in this type of game, is that the Muta player just bombards you, harasses you, and you throw up your hands and say, okay, well, maybe you can't hold my main attack. And that's what Harstem's hoping for.
That's why he's got 9 spine crawlers on the way now. He's just building a ridiculous amount of spines and just trying to hope that he can hold it all at the natural, I think, is where they're all being built, or maybe
in the middle right there. Yeah, it's a lot of spines, and they're already done. That's what Harstem was hoping not to find. He was hoping to find 15 of them in building, and then maybe he has a shot here. He does draw back the Mutas, but even Ling's getting in here, and still, he's going to run out of minerals very soon. He really needed to do a bit more. He's going to take care of the Corruptors, and that's a decent Phoenix count left over, so maybe he can take on the Mutas. Well, 8 through 30. Ooh,
yeah, okay. And the Mutas have that +1, and +2 is getting there. If the Mutas can even just land a hit or two, it's going to lose a lot. The Phoenix getting +1 will be really nice, but it's going to come down to some disgusting control, which is really hard to do when you don't have the range upgrade for those Phoenix.
Yeah. This is, you know, a decent amount of stack defense, so a couple Mutas might die here, and shield batteries will be about the Phoenix. The Phoenix battle is undergoing as the Immortals are using their shields to try and take out the Spine Crawlers. They're going to be absolutely fantastic at doing that, as long as there's no other army helping those Spine Crawlers out, and he's actually going to rush in here, so the Immortals have lost their barrier. Some of them are very, very low, but what he sees is no ground army. It's entirely on those Mutas.
Yep. Now, has enough damage been done to the shields of the Archons? Well, he thinks that the Phoenix should come back to help protect them. Very wise move. Almost loses one of the Phoenix there to that Corruptor. And, I mean, Nerchio just wants to completely cut off the economy here from Harstem. Forces the recall there. Mutas might almost get into a fight. +2 attack is done for them.
The Immortals are left behind, unfortunately, but the Mutas are kind of late in responding to them, so they find this top base, which they weren't sure of, but they were probably suspicious of. Maybe he can save that base. In fact, I think he will. Ling's just bought barely enough time, and that base is going to continue mining. So Nerchio on at least 1 mining base and re-expanding. So he's going to have 5 bases soon.
What a weird game.
It is weird, and it almost looked like Harstem had a chance there. But, okay, when this... Oh.
Well, you gotta be careful. +3 attack Archons, I think, is like 48 damage to bio, which is just insane.
Yeah, it's
so powerful.
The magic box was still just a little too good, though. Phoenix are always gonna have that moment.
Getting a hit on the Phoenix there. That's gotta be it.
That is it. Harstem tries the all-in, tries the attack, and it barely doesn't do enough. But really, that follow-up of the Mutas not being... I mean, they weren't scouted until a very late time, and then even if they were, it was such a weird economical game that going into Stargate as well to respond to them was always going to be a difficult task.
Really rough ZVP today for Harstem. Really rough. Goes the distance in this series, but not able to close it out. And I mean, he's gonna fight it out because this is elimination for him, but Nerchio just played this very well. His strategizing with the Mutalisks was expertly done. Held the attacks very well. And there you go. The GG comes out. Definitely an interesting one from Harstem. And Nerchio wins this best of 3. Very well done.
Yes. Very, very close. I really thought he was underestimating the attack. Maybe thought it was a different timing, 30 seconds later, and he's probably even like, that's an easy thing to hold. But I thought he was going to be dead. I saw drone. But holds. Mute is an excellent choice. And unfortunately, our lone Protoss is now defeated.
Right. So we just got Zergs now for the rest of this group, at least for the European side of things here at WCS Spring Challenger. But don't worry, though. We've got plenty of more StarCraft coming up. That winner's match is going to be next. And I think this one should be really exciting. I mean, two really, really good Zerg players. And again, everyone's going to constantly be talking about it. How is Cyril faring? How is he going to do? We're going to find out after the break. You're watching the World Championship Series.